The Assassin's Creed franchise has become one of the more well-known gaming series in the world today. The original game displayed a fair amount of potential, but didn't really hit on everything it was hoping to achieve at the start of the PS3 and Xbox 360 generation. I still really enjoyed the first game, yet the series really hit its groove once Assassin's Creed 2 released. Assassin's Creed 2 delivered more on the original potential that the first game had shown, and was pretty much the launching point for the series' increased popularity in the years after that. From 2009 through 2015, a new Assassin's Creed title was released every year. The series remained mostly the same through those 6 years, albeit with new settings and smaller changes here and there, yet eventually it started to wear down people with the yearly releases. It also didn't help that the quality of those releases never ended up matching the heights of Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood for most people. Finally, that growing fatigue basically burst in 2014 when the series released both Assassin's Creed Unity, the next generation game, and Assassin's Creed Rogue, the final PS3 and Xbox 360 Assassin's Creed title. Both games released on the same date, and both didn't really wow many people at the time. Assassin's Creed Unity ended up being a huge disappointment to many, as the game was plagued with bugs and questionable microtransactions, not to mention pushing players towards second screen apps. Problems with Unity extended towards the gameplay and story as well. At the time, I found the stealth to be very frustrating due to the enemy AI being incredibly good at detecting players. The combat felt very stiff and animation heavy, and traversing in areas that required a bit more precision felt like you had to drive a semi-truck through an alleyway. Lastly, the story itself ended up being one of my least favorite that the series has provided, an ending I just found extremely dumb and not worth the wait. On a side note, this video was originally going to be about Unity and its possible improvements, but I've heard from many other people that the game isn't actually as bad as many people make it out to be. But after an hour or two of revisiting the game, I really couldn't handle much more of it. I still am not a fan of how the game plays, and it still features a decent amount of bugs. So if you still like that game, good for you, but I still think it doesn't hold up much at all. Assassin's Creed Rogue very much stuck to the same formula as Black Flag, which ultimately made it a better game than Unity at launch, although it still wasn't all that memorable of an experience and had its own fair share of problems. While AC Unity ended up being the main reason that the series finally hit a high point of fatigue, releasing 2 mainline games in the same day only added to it.
No guest. Arnaud. Le Chevalier du Télème. Invitation, s'il vous plaît. About that.
After the release of Unity and Rogue, many people, including myself, felt the series needed to take some time off and reevaluate where the series was going and where it needed to change to feel more fresh. Many thought that Assassin's Creed Unity had finally put an end to the yearly releases for the series, at least for a few years. The very next year though, the franchise released what would be the final traditional Assassin's Creed title, Assassin's Creed Syndicate.
This borough belongs to us! Show the blighters who owns it!
While I was burned from my time with Unity and Rogue, I was willing to give the series one last try, even though my expectations for Syndicate were very much hampered by the recent disappointing outings from the franchise. Syndicate being set in London during 1868 was one of the more intriguing aspects of the game before release. Being set during the latest time period that the core series had ever gone was what really had me most interested in the game. Playing as a brother and sister assassin tandem was also pretty interesting as well. Once I was finally able to play the game, I slowly began to love it more and more. The game fixed many of the problems that Unity had displayed, and mostly felt like what Unity was originally meant to play and feel like. The Fry twins Evie and Jacob ended up having enough personality to make them my favorite protagonists since Ezio, specifically Evie.
Hired. Strike tomorrow. Disraeli's death will stall Corrupt Practices Act indefinitely. Gladstone will be far more pliable. May the father, etc., etc. be. So Sterrick's got his finger in politics, has he? I need to enter the Sinopian Club and find out who B is.
Tread delicately around Parliament.
As if I don't usually.
Your indiscretion at the Bank of England caused British currency to nearly collapse.
Nearly is the operative word. Speaking of collapses, what of the key you found that unlocks very little?
Henry took it for research. I am confident that the vault is ours.
Nearly ours, Evie. Nearly.
The tweaks and new features mostly ended up working out, though it still does have the same overcrowded map troubles that Unity had before, yet slightly less crowded. While I very much felt that the series was back on track and had found a slightly new direction that was worth going towards, Syndicate didn't really review all that much better than Unity or Rogue, and it never gathered much discussion after it released. It certainly felt like people were just tired of Assassin's Creed, and either didn't pay much attention at all to Syndicate, or didn't give the game its fair shake when they finally played it. You can't really blame people for feeling that way, as it was certainly warranted, but as the years have gone by, I feel like Syndicate doesn't really get the respect it deserves, which is being one of the best titles in the series. I honestly think it is up there with Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood as the best in the series. You could include Odyssey as well, if you want. Assassin's Creed Syndicate has a lot of cool elements that help set it apart from other games in the series, and it mostly holds up today. One of the big additions to the game was the rope launcher tool that allowed players to zip across to other rooftops on other sides of streets or open spaces, along with allowing players to quickly reach the top of buildings in a matter of seconds. It was a great addition that really made getting around London feel a lot more smoother than ever before. The zipline was great for setting up easy aerial assassinations and getting out of trouble in an instant. After playing Syndicate, I thought I couldn't play another Assassin's Creed game that didn't have that tool. Turns out, we never got it again. While the rope launcher was a big part of the evolution of the game's parkour, Syndicate also offered some of the best controlling movement in the series. In Assassin's Creed Unity, it felt like I was constantly moving Arno through a fake layer of mud. He just felt slow and heavy. Syndicate fixed that problem, as both Evie and Jacob feel pretty fleet of foot, though tight spaces are still a bit annoying to move around in. The feel of the gameplay was improved along with the animation as well. Going back to Syndicate, I was pretty impressed by the variety of animation in the game and the contextual aspects of the animation. If you run towards someone and assassinate them, Evie or Jacob will use that momentum to take down the enemy, like sliding on the ground and tripping them. The number of enemies and where you are in cover also impact the animation that gets activated. The vast majority of those animations still look great today, and I feel like the most recent games have even taken a step back compared to the animations in Syndicate. While I'm not the biggest fan of Assassin's Creed Unity, one of the best parts of that game ended up being the way that the game opened up assassination missions to make them feel more dynamic. That is one of the praiseworthy things I will say about the game. Syndicate continues those same, more open assassination missions, and these missions feel like something you would see in the Hitman series. They may not be as big of a sandbox as the current Hitman titles, but they offer enough variety that these missions are worth doing a handful of times, just to see the different ways to reach each target. The openness of each assassination mission leads you to approach each mission in multiple different directions. You can sneak around and be more creative, or you can just run in there, just killing everybody in sight, and everything in between. One specific mission had Evie befriend a guard who brought her to the target under the veil of being arrested. which led to a specific cutscene playing out.
To tell me where the shroud is. As you wish. I shall find it without your help, and then I'll strangle you with it. Watch her closely. If you're here, you haven't found the shroud either. By all means, let me know.
For the most part, the assassination missions all end up being really well designed and fun to play. I would say that the game has the best overall assassination missions that the franchise has ever had. And I wish more of the recent games would go back to this formula for some of its bigger targets. On a side note, it seems like nobody ever talks about the fact that you can play a portion of the game set during World War I. The game has a glitch with an animus that, created by someone who you encounter in Assassin's Creed 3, leads you to play as a descendant of Jacob Fry, Lydia Fry. While you don't get to explore the entirety of London during that time, it is a much bigger area than you initially think it is. This portion of the game still feels pretty similar to the rest of the game, just with planes and cars instead of horses and carriages. Either way, I still find it interesting that you get to play during that time period in the game. It honestly makes me wish we had gotten an Assassin's Creed game set during that time or even after. Overall, it is a real cool element that I wish more people would talk about. The fatigue around Assassin's Creed after Unity was justified, as even a big fan like myself was getting tired of playing a series that was beginning to become stale. Because of that series fatigue, Assassin's Creed Syndicate never got a fair opportunity to show people that the series could still be fun to play and be enjoyable to explore. The game is a victim of its predecessor's faults, not to mention Ubisoft not allowing the game to have the time to separate itself from some of the growing fatigue. After Syndicate, the series finally went a year without a new entry in the series. The Assassin's Creed franchise pivoted towards a more RPG style, and if Odyssey is any indication, that new direction has ended up being a very successful one. Odyssey is a great game, and I'm very excited for Valhalla this November. Yet I can't help wonder where the series would be if Syndicate hadn't fell victim to series fatigue. If you ever have an itch to go back to an older Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Syndicate is worth giving a chance, or even a second chance.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are Jacob and Evie Fry. And as of this moment, you all work for us.
Thanks for watching this video. Feel free to like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed it.